was plenty of activity on Capitol Hill today, and it was not all about John Brennan and drones. Some seriously contentious exchanges flew, and a major bombshell was revealed when former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Martin Dempsey went before the Senate Armed Services Committee to testify about the Benghazi consulate attack. Now, the most alarming news that came out of their testimony is that President Obama was virtually absent on the night that 4 Americans died. And according to Panetta, he and General Dempsey only spoke once that night to the commander-in-chief. Watch this.
Up the information that something was happening, that there was an apparent attack going on in Benghazi, and I informed the president of that fact, and he at that point directed both myself and General Dempsey to do everything we needed to do to try to protect lives there.
Did you have any further communications with him that night?
No.
Did you have any other further communications? Did he ever call you that night to say, how are things going? What's going on? Where's the consulate?
No.
Did you communicate with anyone else at the White House that night?
No.
No one else called you to say, how are things going?
No.
Well, the disclosure of that telling statement infuriated my next guest. Watch this exchange.
You talked to the President of the United States one time. So you talked to him for 30 minutes, one time, and you never talked to him again. Neither one of you.
Until afterwards.
Until after the attack was over.
That's right.
Are you surprised that the President of the United States never called you, Secretary Panetta, and say, how's it going?
You know, normally in these situations,
did he know the level of threat?
Well, let me finish the answer. We were deploying the forces. He knew we were deploying the forces. He was being kept updated.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, but I got limited time. We didn't deploy any forces. My question to you is, during that 8-hour period, did the president show any curiosity about how's this going? What kind of assets do you have helping these people? Did he ever make that phone call?
Look, there is no question in my mind that the President of the United States was concerned about American lives.
Well, all due respect, I don't believe that's a credible statement if he never called and asked you, are we helping these people? What's happening to them?
As a former
we have a second round, and we'll
chief
take
of
it
staff to the president.
And here now with more, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, I'm stunned. That's shocking.
If I were a family member and one of my loved ones was killed in Benghazi, I would be sick to my stomach. The President of the United States talked to the Secretary of Defense for 15 minutes, never talked to the Secretary of State until after the attack was over, never made a phone call saying, how close are we to help these people? Where's Chris Stevens? What did he do when he was told the ambassador was missing? We've had one ambassador killed in the last 30 years. The President of the United States has to account for his leadership here. I intend to hold him accountable. Thus far, the White House is delayed, denied, deceived, and stonewalled, and this has to come to an end. He has to account for his leadership.
This was an 8-hour ordeal. I mean, and as you pointed out, they didn't send in any help, which we're now learning that they could have. What was the time frame? Wasn't it early, right after the attack started, that Panetta spoke with Obama? So in other words, like 8 hours went by, the whole night went by, and he didn't talk to Obama once?
He talked to President Obama for 30 minutes around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when the attack was about an hour old. Our ambassador was missing about 30 minutes later. During the entire episode, not one phone call to the Department of Defense from the President of the United States wondering what's going on, how close are we to helping these people. The Secretary of State never once talked to the Secretary of Defense. The President of the United States never made one phone call to find out how this operation was going. And this whole episode, if it had come out before the election, remember when Obama turned to Romney in the third debate and basically said, I know these people, I know their families, I know their names, I would never put them in harm's way. Well, Mr. President, what did you do for 8 hours? Who did you talk to? What kind of leadership did you exhibit? They've made 2 movies about the bin Laden raid. You deserve credit for that, but you have had no accounting for the Benghazi attack, and you're going to have an accounting. I'm not going to stop until the American people know what their commander-in-chief did for 8 hours, and thus far, all we know is he had a 15-minute conversation.
All right. Now, multiple requests, Senator, were made for extra security because the threat was grave and they couldn't withstand an attack. Senator McCain focused on that with General Dempsey. Watch this exchange.
Did you ever get the message that said they could not withstand a sustained attack on the consulate?
I was tracking that intelligence. I was tracking through General
Did you
Ham.
receive that information?
I did, and I saw it.
So it didn't bother you?
It bothered me a great deal, but
Then why
we never
didn't you put
received a
forces
request.
in place to be ready to respond?
Because we never received a request to do so, number one. And number two,
You never heard of Ambassador Stevens' repeated warnings about the lack
I
of
had, sir,
security?
through General Ham, but we never received a request for support from the State Department, which would have allowed us to put
So
forces
it's the
on
State
the ground.
Department's fault.
I'm not blaming the State Department. I'm sure they had their own
Who would you
assessment.
blame?
Sorry, sir?
Who is responsible then?
All right, so Senator McCain's pointing out that they failed to give them the requested security before. Right. You pointed out they failed during the attack, and then it was, am I right to say it's a lie and cover up after?
Oh, I think there's three things we learned today: that Susan Rice's statements on 15 September, 5 days after the attack, were a bunch of BS, because Panetta and Dempsey said today to Senator Inhofe, who did a great job, we knew that night it was a terrorist attack. Chairman Dempsey said the mortar rounds hitting the rooftop was pretty impressive. Panetta and Dempsey both testified that they knew it was a terrorist attack on September the 11th. My question is, how could the President of the United States for over 2 weeks tell us we don't know what happened? How could Susan Rice go on national TV and say there's no evidence of a coordinated terrorist attack? She misled the American people. Who changed the talking points? And Secretary Clinton's story makes no sense. Right, she said she had a clear-eyed view of the threats. She didn't even know about the August 15 memo from her own ambassador, and the Secretary of Defense did.
And the president himself was still blaming a YouTube video 2 weeks later. Last question. You were against enhanced interrogations. You and I had a disagreement on that.
I'm against torture.
Okay. I don't believe the three people that were waterboarded is torture, but not to digress.
Okay.
What about the president bombing people, killing them, targeting them with drone attacks?
I think you should have enhanced interrogation techniques that are classified. I think we should kill all the terrorists or capture the terrorists we can find. I'm okay with the drones, but he won't use Gitmo. We've captured one person, Sean, in 4 years. It's hard to interrogate a dead man. So this president has closed Gitmo, and we're a nation without a jail, and this is going to come back to haunt us, and there are more Benghazis coming. This commander-in-chief is disengaged. He doesn't understand the reality. He's let Syria become a contagion for the whole region. The whole Mideast is blowing up. We don't have a place to put a terrorist if we captured them, and it's going to bite us in the butt.
I guarantee you're right. I wish you were wrong, but you're not. Good to see you, Senator. Thank you. Coming up next, we have shocking new developments.